Man, what is going on between Floyd Mayweather and Gervonta Davis? Obviously, they've had a very close relationship. These guys have been, I don't want to say father and son, maybe that's dramatic, but Floyd has definitely been kind of like a father figure to Gervonta Davis. If you guys know, Floyd Mayweather put Gervonta Davis on his undercard of the Conor McGregor fight. And if you guys know, that was a spectacle, and for Floyd to do that for him, and Floyd's done a lot for Gervonta, and now to see the relationship sour over time, it's kind of unfortunate to see where it's at, because obviously, if you guys have heard, boxing headlines are making a big deal of the fact that, Floyd did an interview, a podcast interview, and talked about how he thinks that Shakur Stevenson is the most skilled fighter at 35, and then Tank's probably the biggest puncher. So still giving Tank credit, but to say that Shakur is more skilled, I guess caused a little bit of, uproar from boxing media. People went crazy about it, but I really do think that Floyd is trying to kind of compensate, because I think he at some point he is a little bit hurt by Gervonta Davis's words, and the fact that he's kind of being a little bit disrespectful is what Floyd has been saying. And Floyd kind of talked about how he's never been anything but supportive of Gervonta Davis and has only had nice things and positive things to say about Tank. But Floyd said that every time he goes on social media, he sees Tank attacking him, this and that. So just to see that relationship kind of crumble a little bit is unfortunate, but obviously Tank, I'm sure he's grateful. He said it in a lot of interviews. I think a lot of people that actually watch Tank interviews and I've seen Tank talk personally about Floyd, they all know that he has respect for him. It's just, at this point, it's a little bit of a tough patch and rough patch in their relationship, so it is kind of sad. But I think that, Floyd Mayweather just wants to be appreciated, for everything that he's done for Tank. And I think he is. I think right now it's just a difficult time for Tank. Tank's going through a lot, and at the same time he's preparing for a fight against Frank Martin on June 15th. And that's going to be a great event, in my opinion. You got David Benavidez as the undercard. This is a PBC, Amazon Prime, event. So I'm excited about it, but ultimately, what is Tank going to do after? And is Floyd Mayweather going to be involved anymore? Because he's kind of served as that right-hand man, and I don't know. I think now that Shakur is kind of seen as that more skilled fighter in Floyd's eyes, and I'm just putting quotes behind it because, this wasn't a narrative before the fight. This wasn't a narrative before, Floyd and Gervonta kind of had a falling out, but it comes after. So that tells me, this is only happening because they're kind of fighting with each other right now. And ultimately, Floyd has done a lot to kind of push for that fight recently. He's been posting on his Instagram fight posters of Shakur versus Tank, saying this is the fight that should be happening. He reposted a video of Shakur Stevenson saying that your beef isn't with Floyd Mayweather, Tank, it's with me. We got to see each other in the ring, things along those lines. So I'm excited because I think that pushes Gervonta's motivation to make a Shakur Stevenson fight happen. And I think that is the fight, because ultimately if you have a guy like Floyd Mayweather, and there's no doubt that Tank's seeing the video of Floyd saying that Shakur is the most skilled fighter at 35, Tank's the biggest puncher. And Tank, he takes things personally, and I know how Tank's brain works, and I know that once he hears something like that, he's going to be extra motivated to fight a guy like Shakur. If he really wants to beat a guy right now, I'm pretty sure it's Shakur Stevenson. I'm pretty sure that Tank, on his hit list still, I think he's going to try to come back for that Ryan Garcia rematch. I don't know what weight it would take place at. It's going to be tough to figure that out, but that's such a big money fight still. Despite the first fight being relatively one-sided, there's still that narrative of the rehydration clause and the catch weight affecting Ryan Garcia, kind of depleting him when it comes to, being drained from making weight, cutting all that weight. And then you have a guy like Devin Haney, who obviously lost to Ryan Garcia, but, still on Tank's hit list. But number one, in my opinion, has to be Shakur Stevenson for Tank. I think it's a personal fight. I think that fight means the most to him, beating a guy like Shakur, because I think deep down Tank knows that Shakur is probably the most skilled fighter that he's ever going to fight. And it could also be a guy like Lomachenko, but one of the two for Tank Davis is a big fight. If you're going to fight Loma, big fight. If you're going to fight Shakur, big fight. Both very athletic, both southpaws, guys that could give Tank a lot of trouble because they are so intelligent. They pose threats that no other fighter has ever posed to Tank, and they're styles that aren't necessarily good for Tank, because all of the fighters we've ever seen Tank against aren't, you know, fighting off the back foot. They're not, you know, fighting backwards. They're not defensive fighters. They're not very conservative fighters. They're come forward fighters. That's why Tank's able to, you know, do his thing so well, why he's always able to produce these knockouts. You need the right dancing partner. Stylistically, Tank is fighting guys that are come forward. He can set a trap for these guys and then, you know, land a big shot on them and put them out. That's the reason why Tank's looking so good, is because these matchups for him are stylistically pleasing. You know, these are all come forward fighters that are eventually going to make a mistake against Tank, who's a counter puncher by nature. He's going to catch you at some point, but when you're against the guy who's more on the back foot, he's more defensive, he's in his shell a little bit, how is Tank going to deal with those guys? Those are the kinds of matchups I want to see when it comes to Tank, because I don't always want to see an offensive fighter against a counter puncher. That obviously the counter puncher is going to land something big, especially if the counter puncher is Tank and he possesses that level of power. So what happens when you have a counter puncher against, you know, a boxer? It could be a boring fight. Who knows? It could be a boring fight until, you know, a guy like Tank lands a big shot, or it could continue to be a boring fight. I think a counter puncher, when he's forced to go after his food, looks ugly. You know, take a guy like Teofimo Lopez, who has fought in a lot of guys that fought off the back foot. You know, Teo fought guys like Sandor Martin. He fought guys like Jermaine Ortiz, who I think he still beat Jermaine Ortiz. I don't think Ortiz did enough, but still not Teo's best performance, gave him a lot of trouble because he was on the back foot. Teo, who is also a counter puncher by nature like Tank, had to go hunt for his food, and in that process he had to do something that he's not so used to doing. He had to try to cut off the ring, and when you're not doing it often, you know, you don't prepare for a guy to be moving around a lot, then you kind of look bad in your performance, and that's just the way it is. That's stylistically how boxing works. It's not always about can I knock this guy out? You know, who's the stronger, who's the faster? No, it's the literal style of fighting. You know, people like to say guys like Devin Haney and Shakur don't have power. No, you guys don't understand. They're so defensive, they're so on the back foot, and they're so mobile to the point where it's hard to set your feet. You need to set your feet to get power, and Tank is good at setting his feet at one moment to set a trap, and then he lands a big shot. That's why Tank generates that power, because he's always planted, you know what I mean? He also has quick feet when he wants to, but he knows when he has to really set them down and land a big shot. That's what makes Tank really special, knowing when to you know, pick your shots and not stay in the pocket for too long. That's what Tank's really good at. And as a counter puncher, you know, I would expect nothing less, but Tank is definitely a, you know, stellar. You know, he's definitely stands out when it comes to counter punching, because it's not easy to stand in the pocket. It's not easy to set a trap, but Tank is so good at letting a guy feel so comfortable to the point where he overcommits. And when he overcommits, that's when Tank capitalizes, and that's when he's most dangerous. So I really do like when Tank fights these fighters that are very come forward, but I'm also very intrigued and interested and curious to see how he deals with a guy that's, you know, Shakur, who's a very, you know, cautious and very on the back foot fighter, and at the same time, guys like Devin, guys like Shakur Stevenson, they have the mindset of hit and don't get hit. Although that doesn't produce the most exciting fights for the fans, ultimately that's a difficult style to beat, because they understand how important it is to hit and not get hit. Because in this sport, it's not always about getting a knockout. It's ultimately about winning the fight. And Floyd Mayweather even says it. I only need to win 7 rounds. The rest of it, you know, I'm still going to win other rounds, but ultimately if I win 7, the fight's over, right? So at the end of the day, there's different mindsets. People have different approaches to the sport of boxing. Tank has more of an approach where he's fighting with that anger. He's fighting with that fire. He wants to get you out of there. And then you have guys like Devin and Shakur that are more so like, let's win by any means necessary, even if it's a boring fight. With the exception of Devin Haney versus Ryan Garcia, I obviously think, and you guys know that I think that Devin fought the wrong fight. I think in a rematch, Devin definitely has a chance to beat Ryan Garcia, but ultimately I think that power is a little bit too much of a factor. So I think a rematch with Ryan Garcia and Devin Haney is a 50-50 fight in my opinion. Still a fight that I very much want to see, but for Tank, I'm really intrigued to see guys like Devin and guys like Shakur fight him. Guys that are a little bit more slick. There aren't too many of them out there. They're a rare species, but guys like Shakur specifically, I think, is that toughest test. And Lomachenko poses a different threat because he's not so much on the back foot. He more so has those angles, and he's athletic and he's fast. So that's the kind of stuff that, you know, Lomachenko possesses that could also be a threat for Tank, because it's hard for me to see, Tank hurting Lomachenko, because Lomachenko, he's obviously been dropped, but never really like hurt. So in my opinion, I think that Tank beats a guy like Lomachenko, Tank beats a guy like Devin or Shakur. That proves a lot to me. Those are the fights I want to see from Tank. But let me know in the comments what you guys think. All this Floyd Mayweather drama, Tank getting ready for Frank Martin. I got Tank beating Frank Martin by 9th round stoppage. I think that as good as Frank is, you know, Tank, like with many of his other opponents, is just going to end up being too much for Frank Martin. But let me know in the comments what you guys think. Thank you guys for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace.
That's going to do it for another Naz Fight Media video, guys. Thank you guys so much for watching. It's been your boy, Matt Nabong, with another video. Hope you guys enjoyed it all. Thank you guys for the constant support. Salute to y'all always. It's been your boy.